talking about sa mga achievements na yan. Unang-una na nga ang women's football na kung saan si Ma'am Cristy is isa sa mga leaders natin. Ma'am Cristy, before we ask you the questions, maybe we can hear from you for your opening remarks.
Magandang umaga sa inyong lahat at maraming salamat sa pag-imbita. It's really an honor for me and a pleasure to be on Sports on Air. So good morning to everyone.
Thank you, Ma'am Cristy. And of course, makakasama ko ngayon sa panel. Of course, kanina natin na si Ernest Hernandez. Kasama din natin si Gerard Arsen from Bulgar, si Ivan Saldaheno, Philippine News Agency, si Gab Pereras ng Sports PH, and of course, later on, makakasama natin si Ron De Los Reyes. Ernest, I'll ask the first question na kay Ma'am Cristy. No? I'm sure marami tayong gustong itanong. Ma'am Cristy, again, thank you for joining us. And alam mo, Ma'am Cristy, itong mga recent months na kung saan pinag-uusapan natin yung mga achievements ng mga kababaihan sa sports, hindi natin maiwasan na isa ka sa mga maaalala namin because of your achievements sa sports. Of course, bago ka naging presidente ng Philippine Olympic Committee, alam namin na very active ka sa football, na kung saan naging member ka nga ng national team, and you also established the Philippine Ladies Football Association before, no, during the 80s. And we also remember yun na naging part ng bronze medal team natin ng football, no, sa Southeast Asian Games. Ma'am Cristy, with all this happening sa Philippine sports, na kung saan nga nakakuha ng unang gold medal si Heidelin Diaz sa Tokyo Olympics, then si Yuka Saso nag-excel din sa golf, and ito ang kamakailan ang ating Philippine Women's Football Team na kung saan for the first time ay makakasama tayo sa World Cup. Can you share your thoughts dito sa mga rise ng mga kababaihan sa Philippine sports?
Ay, finally, no? Siyempre, napakasaya ko at I think yung mga, kung matatawag na natin ang lola ng ladies football, dahil naumpisahan namin yung ladies football, back then ang tawag namin ladies football to make it more acceptable. Back in the late 1970s, nag-umpisa kami naglaro sa UP Los Baños in 1978 at ang kalaban namin noon ay UP Diliman. So nagkaroon kami ng exhibition match organized by the Philippine Football Association, hindi pa federation noon, for the opening of the PFA Cup noon sa Ugarte Field sa Makati. Ngayon wala na yan, park na lang. At maganda naman ang naging reception noon, no? So UP Diliman versus UP Los Baños ladies team. Pero medyo halo-halo talaga yung team na yon. Dahil yung sa UP Los Baños, it was the women's volleyball team and I was the co-captain then sa UPLB varsity volleyball team. At yung sa UP Diliman, mostly the women's softball team. Pero then may mga basketball players katulad ni Rowena Cardenas, mga track and field athletes, katulad ni Vilma Habat, and of course also from FEU, si Yoli Mendoza, who was also a track and field athlete. So doon kami nag-umpisa at napakahirap talaga noon dahil medyo sumasakay lang kami noon sa men's football. So for example, yung mga laro namin noon, gagawin nila ng 11 o'clock ng umaga o 1 o'clock ng hapon dahil maglalaro yung mga lalaki ng 4 o'clock, no, na hindi naman masyadong mainit. And it has really been a long journey and a long process for us. Kasi ayun nga, from yung organized women's football started 1980 when I organized the Philippine Ladies Football Association as the governing body then. Kasi noon, even at that time, ang FIFA ayaw sa women's football. Ayaw nilang suportahan ng women's football. Kaya ang nangyari noon, nagkaroon ng ALFC, the Asian Ladies Football Confederation. Kung titignan natin ngayon, parang ayun yung naging women's version ng AFC, ng Asian Football Confederation. Dahil nga ayaw ng FIFA suportahan ng women's football. Ngunit yung women's football naman sa Europe, maraming naglalaro na on the club level. Tapos sa Australia and New Zealand din, nagkakaroon ng women's football doon. At naimbitahan naman kami noong 1980 na bumahagi sa ALFC. And it so happened na ako nga ang namuno doon sa Philippine Ladies Football Association. Kaya ako yung naging representative sa ALFC from 1980. Nagkaroon kami din ng iba't ibang liga locally. In fact, napakasaya nga noon dahil nagkaroon kami ng 10 women's teams, no? At yung isang team nga, yung Baguio Colleges Foundation, dadalo yun sa Maynila para lang maglaro. And of course, we had the UP Los Baños team. Pero most of the teams were school-based. Yung iba naman hindi dahil the Philippine Air Force women's team also was part of it. Kaya noon nakikita naman namin na nagiging popular ng women's football. So we decided yung kailangan talagang ayusin, lalo na yung sa administration. At maganda nga nun dahil may international governing body na for ladies football then. Tapos medyo lumaki ang women's football. In fact, 1981, yung unang outing namin, the very first women's national football team. We competed in Hong Kong, no, yung Asian Ladies Football Cup. So that was the very first one ng 1981. At kung masasabi din natin, actually medyo hindi naman siguro first time mag-compete ang Philippines international or world level na competition. Kasi 1981 later, also, nakibahagi din kami sa World Women's Football Tournament sa Taiwan. Parang Women's World Cup na rin yun, siguro kung titingnan natin, dahil international talaga yung mga teams. Ngunit yung ibang teams doon, mga club teams, yung iba national teams, halo-halo. But we were fortunate enough to get invited. Medyo lampaso lang kami doon, sa totoo lang. Dahil kami yung pinakabagong team doon eh. Baguhan kami, wala kaming template on how to develop women's football, wala kaming standard. Kaya ang parang tinignan namin noon, ano yung level ng men's football? Parang ayun ang naging ano namin eh, yung parang naging aim na medyo siguro yung standard namin sa women's football medyo katapat ng men's or yung mga university teams ganon. Kasi nga wala naman internet noon, walang Facebook, walang social media. Kaya walang cable TV, napakahirap na talagang pagmasdan o mag-aral ng mga iba't ibang teams from other countries. Ayun na nga, napakaganda din ng development dahil dumami ang mga kababaihan natin na gustong bumahagi at maglaro ng women's football. At lumaki ng lumaki until such time nga na tinanggap din ng FIFA, sabi nila, women's football is getting bigger. And ang FIFA naman, being the sole governing body for football all over the world, naisip din nila, kailangan nilang tanggapin talagang women's football. So in about 1985-86, ayan, tinanggap na nila. And down to the confederations, nagkaroon ng directive nga na sakupin na ng confederations ang women's football. So we fell under, of course, the Philippine Football Association then as a women's committee, no? Yung bahagi na lang kami. So wala naman talagang naging separate na governing body for women's football na. So PhilFA, the Philippine Ladies Football Association, we had to come under the PFA, no, para isa na lang yung governing body. At ang nangyari din sa 1986 AFC Congress sa Korea noon, sa Seoul, nagkaroon nung very first AFC Women's Committee. At napakaswerte ko din, naging bahagi ako noon, no? So I was a member of the very first AFC Women's Committee in 1986.
Cristy,
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, Ma'am Cristy, nabanggit nga na ikaw yung founder ng Philippine Ladies Football Association and you were the skipper of the Philippine National Women's Team from 1980
Yes.
to 1986. Dito sa current team natin na women's football team, isa sa mga unfortunate na issues na nai-raise is yung composition ng team, no? May mga Phil foreigners. What's your take dito sa ganitong mga usapan na homegrown talents against sa mga Phil foreigners na members ngayon ng ating national women's football team?
I think talagang what made the real difference, at hindi lang naman sa sports, no, pero even Miss Universe, our beauty candidates, yung dual citizenship law. I think ayun talaga ang nag-iba sa scenery, no, dahil legally pwede naman magkaroon ng what you call yung Phil foreigners, di ba? Ang proof lang naman, kailangan kami Philippine passport, no, for those living abroad. And of course, when they come here, they can still retain their foreign citizenship. So sa pananaw ko, ayun talaga ang naging at malaking difference sa Philippines, no? On the positive light, naging maganda naman kasi nagiging dynamic, di ba? Yung nagkakaroon tayo ng even physically, yung mixture ng genes, and we are able to take advantage of the talents from abroad. No, so it does add some dynamism to the scene. But on the other hand also, so nakakalungkot minsan dahil given nga yung population ng Pilipinas, di ba, even locally, we are more than 100 million Filipinos. So kung talagang tutuusin, napakadaming talent sa bansa lang natin, no? Hindi naman tayo talaga kailangan siguro lumabas. Ngunit pumunta lang tayo sa mga probinsya, develop the talents, and hopefully yung pwedeng i-sustain hanggang tumanda sila. At I think ayun ang nagiging problema. We like to do the shortcuts. Ayaw natin, alagaan from elementary school hanggang high school at syempre hanggang maging college and eventually eligible to play at the senior levels. Hindi ko sinasabi mali yun, because other countries also do it. Marami naman din dyan, di ba, lalo na mga for example, France or even Germany and even Africa, maraming mga players din na mixed ang heritage or mixed ang parentage. Ang sa akin lang, sana we give emphasis on local development. Siguro pwede nilang lagyan ng percentage. For example, at any given time, dapat 60%, for example lang, 60% or 70% of the members of the national team or training pool have to be in the Philippines, have to be living in the Philippines or have been born in the Philippines. Kasi pwede natin ikukumpara yan sa protecting our local industries, di ba? For example, sa agriculture. Mahirap naman sa atin na we are an agriculture country. Pwede naman tayo, di ba? Pwede naman tayo magplant ng bigas, di ba? But we are now the #1 world importer of rice. So what happens to our local industries, di ba? So the same with other products. Lahat kinukuha natin imported, di ba? So syempre mas magastos at syempre yung mga magsasaka natin, di ba? Medyo dehado sila, mababa yung nakukuha nila sa mga produkto nila. No? So I liken getting, if you want to call them foreign athletes, to yung protecting our local industry. Hindi naman natin sinasabi na mali o hindi naman natin sinasabi na masama. But ang tendency kasi nagiging quick fix, no? Walang sustainable development. At dapat ayan talaga ang tignan natin, yung sustainable development yung makaka-relate ang mga locals sa, ayan na, foreign-based talents. Kasi for now, okay, maganda, nandyan sila sa final round ng Asian Women's Cup or nandyan sila sa FIFA Women's World Cup. But after that, what? Di ba? Sana pwede silang mag-relate o turuan nga nila yung mga local talents or local people natin. Kasi napakaganda, di ba? Maganda yung achievement ng national team natin ngayon kung makakapagpunta sila sa probinsya o they go to a school, for example, even by Zoom sessions or what, no? Maganda ang magiging connection at mas magiging relevant sa ating mga bata o sa ating mga mamamayan kung may connection na ganon. Kasi after this, ang mangyayari nga, babalik na sila sa bansa nila, no? If they're based in the US or they're based in Europe. So parang walang connect. At ayun ang nakakalungkot nga, na the locals do not identify with the national team. Kaya nga, tinatawag natin na national team yan, di ba? Philippine National Team. Dapat sakop lahat. Dapat sakop ang bansa nating Pilipinas. So kung susuotin nila yung flag, lalagyan nila ng pangalan ng Pilipinas, it should represent the country. So yun na nga, that's the other thing that's connected with the PE classes, yung sustainability. Na ang bata, for example, 6 years old, gusto maglaro ng football, will stay on with the sport hanggang tumanda siya. So we have a constant pool of talents. Hindi na tayo aasa sa, ayun nga, field foreigners, no? Kasi kada event, kailangan tayo maghanap ng field foreigners. And I would like to see, ano ba ang investment dyan, di ba? Magkano ang ginagastos dyan? Compared to, kung pupunta tayo sa probinsya, we develop our local talent, syempre medyo mabagal siguro, no? It takes time, pero investment nga yun on our local people.
So Ma'am Cristy, given the chance, you would still recommend sa mga football officials natin na to continue or mas lalong palakasin yung grassroots development program natin ng football, no? Especially in women's football, instead dito sa mga na sinasabi nga na quick fix solution na kukuha tayo ng mga foreign talents to represent the Philippines.
Oo, syempre, no? Kasi it is for national development. At ang sports naman hindi lang pang medalya yan eh. Ayan din ang sa pananaw ko, no? Yung talagang misconception. Hindi natin sinasabi na ayun nga, mali naman yung pang medalya lang o pang Olympics lang o pang World Cup lang. Hindi naman na that is not a good goal. We have to aim for the best, di ba? We have to aim for the highest levels. Pero ang sinasabi din natin na ang sport, pwede naman maraming taong makinabang dyan for health and fitness purposes. And of course, for fun and enjoyment, di ba? Pangtanggal ng stress o pang socializing. Well, ngayon, medyo mahirap, ano? Because of the pandemic and we have to quarantine at times. But there are other values in sport outside of the medal-winning component na, ayun nga, dapat tingnan natin. And it's not only the National Sports Associations or the teams or, you know, the POC, but really, I think it lies on the Philippine Sports Commission as the national body, policy-making body for sport. Tignan natin yan. Kasi nga, nagkakaroon ng gray areas, nagkakaroon ng, if I will call it, territorial dispute, lalo na pag dumadating na sa international competitions, no? Dapat ang POC at yung National Sports Associations ang lead agencies or lead associations dyan. The PSC is really more a national, a local governing body. But ayun nga, nagkakaroon ng sapawan minsan, ano, who will govern what, who decides what, who will fund what. nagkakaroon ng ayun nga, alitan minsan dyan. And I think we really have to draw the lines there kasi maganda kung complementary and supplementary ang relationship, yung hindi competitive. So for example, ang PSC naman is a government body, dapat silang in charge for national development. No? Of course, they've done that with Batang Pinoy and other programs, but they can actually also support the national teams and international competitions in other means. By Republic Act 6847 nga sa batas, funding is a crucial component, no? Or maybe they can also encourage private sector, encourage industries to support our national teams. Ayan, medyo hindi masyadong tinutulak yan, ano? But it is also under Republic Act 6847 that corporations and companies who support our sports programs are given incentives. Ayan, dapat siguro, ayan ang mas tingnan ng Philippine Sports Commission because I think we also have to lessen the dependence of sport on government. Kasi nagkakaroon ng ipitan dyan at siyempre napakahirap dahil kung kasama yan sa national budget, kung fund by public funds, dadaan pa through Congress, through the Senate, through COA, kaya napakahaba o napakabagal ng proseso. But if the POC and the NSAs are allowed to go directly to private sector to solicit funds, sa tingin ko mas magiging okay yun, no? And of course, the NSAs and the POC will have more control over their operations and over their affairs. Yung hindi na, ayun nga, for example, hindi na kailangan dalhin pa sa Senate or hindi na kailangan dalhin sa congressional hearing. Yung mga bagay na talaga naman should be kept within the NSAs or between NSAs and POC. Kasi nga mga private entities ito, no? And the other thing, of course, is yung recognition ng International Sports Federation. And this is also happening now in Patafa and athletics. Dapat yun talagang, again, reevaluate, let us really see who does what and where each other, where people can support and the agencies can support various sectors and various levels in sport in the Philippines. So hindi lang yung susuportahan natin yung national athletes. But siguro, yeah, we have to go down to the grassroots. And really, the key components there, of course, are yung LGUs and the schools. So DepEd, no, for the public schools, and of course, the private schools. Ayun ang tingnan natin.
Yes, Ma'am Cristy, last month naging panauhin nga namin si PSC Commissioner Mon Fernandez and nabanggit niya nga na one of the biggest regrets ng PSC, no? Kung meron mga regrets because very successful nga yung naging performance ng mga Filipino artists natin under dito sa PSC headed by Chairman Butch Ramirez. Nabanggit ni Commissioner Mon na because of the pandemic and the limited budget ng PSC, yung malaking budget ng government agency natin napunta sa training ng mga elite athletes ng national team na konti na lang yung natira para sa grassroots sports, no? Kaya nabanggit nga ni Commissioner Mon na yung mga children's games, yung Batang Pinoy medyo na-shell because of the limited budget na dahil na nga sa pandemic. So, as a former POC president, ano ang gusto mong sabihin sa PSC natin at sa mga susunod na leaders ng PSC na since this is an election year, ano ang gusto mong i-suggest para gawin ng susunod na PSC para dito sa training ng national athletes natin, yung mga elite athletes nga na sinasabi at yung mga sa grassroots sports ng bansa?
Again, tignan natin closely yung definition ng roles ng isa't isa. Okay, so PSC, you are government, you are a policy-making body. So kung tutuusin talaga, the PSC are not the experts in the sport. They do not know the technical requirements of a sport. They are not authorized to send national athletes in international competitions. Dahil ang NSAs at ang POC ang gumaganap sa mga role na ganyan. No? For example na, Philippine Football Federation, they are the governing body for football as recognized by the International Federation FIFA. Or PATAFA, they are the governing body for athletics in the Philippines as recognized by the International Sports Federation World Athletics. So, dapat tingnan natin yan. Okay, and in fact, really, PSC officials, and I really strongly emphasize on this. In fact, nung time ko nga, I emphasized on this. PSC officials, please stay home. Okay, please stay home in the Philippines. Let the recognized and authorized persons attend the international event. So that will be the athletes, the coaches, POC officials, or other NSA officials. Kasi sinasabi nga nila, no? Okay, we are sending PSC officials to observe and to lend moral support. Eh, pwede na naman natin pwede natin gawin yan, di ba? From where we are. And we have proved this, ayun nga, like with, Zoom sessions, what happened to the pandemic. Nanalo naman yung mga atleta natin, but we stayed home. Di ba? Hindi naman kailangan na gagastos tayo ng Philippine taxpayers' money para bumahagi doon, no? Let us give that support, financial or otherwise, dun sa nararapat na dapat makatanggap ng support na yan. So in fact, siguro we could have sent more athletes if they were qualified, or more coaches if they were qualified, to international events, at ginamit nila yung budget o yung pera na ginamit ng PSC, no, for their own delegation. So I think we also have to be more conscious of that, no? Again, because this is taxpayers' money, gamitin natin sa tama, no? Not because we are going there as a tourist or what, pero kunyari lang we're wearing the jacket of the Philippines and the national flag, but really, what is your involvement there? No, kung sasabihin mo lang, cheerleader ka lang at papalakpak ka, we can do that at home, no? For the meantime, kasi nga, medyo gipit tayo sa budget, o dapat siguro may isang deserving athlete na dapat ang pumunta doon sa international competition. And the other thing, the PSC has always been asking, di ba? Present your papers, liquidate your expenses. Ito naman, no, coming from a taxpayer then. Gusto din namin makita, and PSC as a government agency, ipakita nyo sa publiko kung magkano ang nagastos o ginagastos nyo kada outing ng PSC officials. Di ba? Nilabas na nila yung figures na yan. How much do they spend for their hotel, for their food, for their transportation when they go to these events? Nalabas na yan publicly? I don't think so. I have not seen any document thus far. And dapat lang we are entitled to that open information dahil nga government agency ang PSC. It relies on taxpayers' money, on public money. So siguro naman we are also entitled to see. Ayun, magkano ginagastos nitong mga officials na to, di ba? It is not out of spite or what, kasi baka sabihin nyo, ayun, tinitira mo na naman ng PSC. Hindi yun. No, we just want to emphasize on the accountability and openness with such expenses, with such use of public money. Kasi nga, di ba, nire-require nga ng PSC na liquidate kayo, mga NSAs, liquidate kayo, POC. Ilabas nyo lahat ng papeles. Pero ngunit sila, di ba, on their side, nasaan yung expenses din ninyon? Di ba? Magkano ang nagastos nyo when you went to the Asian Games, Southeast Asian Games of past? Or if you went to the Tokyo Olympics, di ba? Magkano ginastos nyo? We want to know. Di ba? Just for accountability. Okay? The other thing, of course, emphasize on grassroots development. And again, it doesn't have to be for medal purposes kasi napakahirap na maging national athlete, di ba? And not everyone will want to be a national athlete, but people can still enjoy sport. Ayun nga, lalo ng mga bata, di ba? Gusto lang nila maglaro. They want to have fun. They want, eventually siguro, aim for physical fitness. Di ba, for example, instead of going to a place by car, magbibisikleta ka na lang, di ba? O lalakad ka na lang. And there are also economic benefits to that. So again, I think the PSC has to look into the other components. O siguro naman PSC, tignan nyo yung mga factories, for example, or companies. They might want to invest in the Philippines and manufacture sports equipment, di ba? So, ayun, of course, meron din yung sports tourism component. Ayan din ang mga tingnan nila ng mga bagay-bagay. And these are actually supplementary and complementary policies and actions that can be done but will still help our national athletes. So, hindi naman kailangan na ayun nga, may national team na pupunta sa Olympic Games. Kasama kami dyan. We will concentrate on their training. Okay, mabuti yan. Ngunit yung ibang bagay nga, locally, naiiwanan din, di ba? And again, okay, let's look at the IRR, no? Yung investment. Ano yung returns niyan? Okay, 2 tao, we spent, I don't know, 50 million, for example. Okay, ganyan. So, is that worth the investment in their opinion, di ba? Kung 50 million ang gagastusin nyo locally, how many people would have benefited, di ba? Ilang bata ang magpa-participate sa sport? Kaya dapat din tignan natin yun, not just because it's the Olympic year or it's the Southeast Asian Games year, or magkakaroon tayo ng international event, baka mag-medalya tayo. But again, for 1 person, 2 persons, at kaya nga napakahalaga na pumasok ang private sector. Kasi it is an investment, napakalaki ng halaga na dapat gastusin. So maybe we can transfer that, if I call it burden, no, financial burden, sa private sector. So I think these are the things na dapat bigyan ng focus, no? Or ibahin ang focus ng namumuno dyan, no? Whether it's the Philippine Sports Commission or the NSAs and the PSC, the POC, the Philippine Olympic Committee. Kasi
Yes,
ang nangyayari nga, we have become so dependent on the PSC when actually a private sector nga ang POC at NSAs. Pwede naman kayo lumapit sa private sector. But it is not encouraged, nor is it being pushed more, no? Kasi nga, parang they have that carrot, we are dangling the PSC carrot, the public funding. Kulang na nga yan eh. At ang nangyayari nga, nagigipit yung ibang programa locally na dapat sanang ma-implement din, ayun nga, nakukulangan ng budget, hindi natutuloy, no? So
yes, ma'am, no. Speaking of the PSC nga, and the grassroots development program na medyo naiwan because sa mga elite athletes natin na sunod-sunod, may Olympics, then the Southeast Asian Games. Well, I think yung in terms of achievements sa mga atleta natin, medyo maganda tong performance ng PSC natin dahil nagkaroon tayo ng Olympic gold medal, then si Yuka Sasso nanalo sa golf, and then sa women's football team natin nag-qualify sa World Cup. Ma'am, one more question.
Siyempre maganda yun, no? Siyempre maganda yun, no? Very good achievements, especially for the women. But what I'm also talking about, may I interject lang, no? Yung sustainability. No, so hopefully for the next Asian Ladies Cup, for example, Asian Women's Cup, for example, or the next FIFA Women's World Cup, nandyan pa rin ang Pilipinas. Yung hindi lang natin sasabihin na, ay, nag-qualify lang tayo for the 2023 Women's World Cup, tapos wala na. No, yung ganon. Ayun ang maganda din sa programa ng Vietnam, for example, and even Thailand. Because I think ayun nga, ang batas natin iba. We recognize dual citizenship. Sa Vietnam, ang mga kinukuha nilang players, yung talagang taga-bansa nila, no? Local players. When they could have gotten French Vietnamese, for example, or American Vietnamese, di ba? Especially after yung Vietnam War nga, di ba? Lahat nasira. Everything devastated after more than 20 years of war. Ngunit anong ginawa nila? Di ba? Nagpursige, they believed in their own people, and before we knew it, Philippines, natatalo na tayo kahit sa Southeast Asian Games, di ba? And this is Vietnam. They had a war for 20 years, lahat devastated, di ba? They really had to start from scratch. At hindi naman nilang ginawang shortcut. Ayun nga, for example, sa football, hindi naman sila kumuha ng French Vietnamese o American Vietnamese para lumaro pa sa national team nila. So I think it is also their belief in themselves as a national, as a country, as a nation, naniwala sila sa sarili nila, and they really started from scratch. Ngayon sa Thailand naman, hanga din ako talaga sa women's football nila. Dahil nakita ko din yung mga players nila from under 14 years old to under 16 to under 19 to the senior teams. No? Nakita ko yung development nila. Magkakasama lahat yan. No? So maganda yung development nila. Sustained development. Siyempre, along the years, nagkakaroon din ng pagbabago. May mga players din na siguro ayaw na maglaro o kailangan magtrabaho, no? But yung core nung team nila was since yung youth days nila. Kaya napakaganda ng development nila. Ngayon siguro medyo nga mahina yung team ng Thailand, hindi naging maganda yung performance nila. So they didn't qualify for the World Cup. Although Thailand women's team qualified for the Canada Women's World Cup. No? But kung makikita din natin sa Southeast Asian Games level, for example, di ba? Nakikita niyo naman, di ba? Consistent ang Thailand, malakas. Always placing, top 3, di ba? So, ang vision ko sana ganyan din sa Pilipinas na hindi lang tayo nagiging number 1 pag tayo ang host, no? Okay, after this, for example, di ba? 2005, okay, we were number 1. But after that, yung sa Southeast Asian Games, di ba, we hover at about 5, 6, 7. So sa akin, ang dapat, di ba, at least nasa top 3 tayo or even 4, pwede pa yun. But if you're going from number 1, tapos babagsak ka ng number 5, 6, 7, talagang may mali doon, di ba? Parang flash in the pan ka lang talaga, parang para dun lang. At sana wag naman, kasi nga yung consistency and sustainable achievements ang dapat natin tingnan. That should be the goal.
Yes, Ma'am Cristy, one more question before I turn over the floor sa mga kasama ko. Madami rin silang itatanong sa iyo, especially sa case ni EJ Obiena. Tanong ko lang sa iyo, I understand hindi ka in favor sa tawag sa mga football players natin na malditas. The same thing na sa men's football, hindi ka rin in favor na ang tawag sa kanila ay Ascals.
You're correct there, no? Ako naging national player ako. Ako, Filipino ako. And I feel as a Filipino, and lalo na pag naging national team ka. So ang ibig sabihin nun, di ba, ikaw yung pinakamagaling. You are the best. You represent what the best is for this country, for the Philippines. Kaya sana naman, pagpresenta natin sa ating mga national teams, and for example, in this case, okay, they are the best in men's football in the Philippines. They are the best in women's football in the Philippines. Ipakita naman natin yung best image ng Pilipinas. Okay, siyempre siguro they wanted to be flashy or catchy, di ba? Ganyan. So siguro pauso lang na let's call the Filipinas Malditas, no? But having been in FIFA, in international circles, lalo na sa Spanish-speaking countries, tinatanong nila sa akin noon, why is your national team called Malditas? And if you look at the dictionary, Spanish dictionary, parang hindi maganda yung term eh. So it means damned in Spanish, D-A-M-N-E-D. And syempre sa atin, no, yung local vernacular natin sa salita natin, yung everyday, di ba? Ang Maldita, may I use the term, would refer to something bitchy, di ba? Sabihin, maldita yan, di ba? So parang hindi maganda ang imahe, lalo na sa mga kababaihan. And personally, I feel really insulted and degraded pag sinasabi na, "Hoy, maldita kayo." Di ba yung gano'n? Hindi maganda ang connotation. And ayun nga, kung bibigyan natin ng pangalan ang dapat the best that represents the Philippines, di dapat sana positive naman ang image, no? Yung hindi lang dahil uso-uso o yung iba ang term, di ba? I mean, medyo ear-catching, di ba? Pag narinig mo na Maldita, parang, uy, ano yan? Di ba? Ganon. Sana hindi naman ganon. Dahil yung ibang teams naman, for example, ang Japan, they call their national players the Nadeshiko. So ang Nadeshiko, bulaklak yun, na napaka maganda, mahalimuyak. So it represents what is the best for women in Japan. So sana tayo ganun din, no? And I would even suggest, for example, you can call them the Gabrielas, no? After Gabriela Silang, who was, ayun nga, kasi sinasabi yata nung nag-invento ng pangalan, feisty women daw. Si Gabriela Silang, di ba? Fighter, may leadership, di ba? And she is really a part of Philippine history. She is part of Philippine culture. So sa akin, no, sana pinag-aralan nila na hindi lang inisip na, uso, okay yan, di ba? Ganyan. It's hip, it's cool, di ba? Kasi nga, dinadala nila yung bandera at yung pangalan ng Pilipinas. Hindi lang naman yung football team, yung women's football team, natatawagin mo Malditas. Kaya napakasakit din sa akin personally. And syempre, dahil ako nga yung founder ng women's football sa Philippines, at pag makakarinig na ako na statement na bata, sinasabi, gusto ko maging Maldita. Di ba? Parang hindi yata maganda yun. Ayun ang sinasabi nila. Di ba? Gusto ko maging Maldita. Now, for the men's moniker, no, as calls with a Z, sa akin din parang hindi maganda yung tunog nun, no? Kasi kung titignan naman natin, ano ba ang definition ng ASCALs, di ba? In our vernacular, asong kalye, di ba? Again, ganun bang mga Pilipino? Is that the best image to represent the Philippines? Di ba? But again, sinasabi nga, fighter, di ba? Yung kawawa, pero fighter, ganon. Okay, maybe in that respect, ayun ang imahe, but we should also have a symbol, you know, whether a moniker or yung visual symbol or motto of our national teams na uplifting naman, no? Nakakabuti sa atin, nakakabuti sa imahe ng Pilipinas. And again, you know, when you're in the national team, of course, you should be the best, di ba? Kaya hindi ako masaya sa ganyan. But apparently, ayun ang napili at naaprubahan naman ng Philippine Football Federation.
I'm sure,
Again,
Ma'am Christy,
yeah.
i-consider ng mga football officials natin yung suggestion mo na mag-isip tayo ng mga ibang moniker sa national team natin.
At kasi
Anyway,
yeah, go ahead.
yes.
Sige
Anyway,
lang.
Ernest, let's give the other the chance to ask their questions kay Ma'am Christy.
Sige, Sir Ed, no, ako may sisingit akong tanong bago ipunta kay Sir Ron de los Reyes. Ma'am, you think with the success right now of our women's football team, do you think it's about time that we come up with a professional league for women's football na rin?
Yeah, I think there is, no, but I think it's a little too soon. Okay, because again, the crucial thing really is the facilities. Okay, the facilities, and when you talk about professional teams, and really the best example of that is really the PBA teams. Those are professional teams. They have very good marketing. They are sustained by the private sector. So titingnan nga natin, no? Okay, football is popular, but also the leagues, for example, in other countries in Europe, also highly rely on gate receipts. No? Yung may papasok, manunood, magbabayad ng ticket. Ngayon, kung wala naman tayong facility na maganda, di ba? Walang upuan na komportable. At ang football, mahaba ang laro ng football, no? Kung uupo ka sa isang silya na hindi nabutas, di ba? Will people be willing to pay for tickets? And the other thing, of course, you can carry it to sponsorship. And pag sponsorship, kung kukuha ka ng sponsorship deals, a lot of that is tied up with broadcasting. Di ba? Whether on cable TV or regular TV, UHF, VHF, or now, of course, ganito, no? Social media on YouTube or what. So ano yung marketability ng event? Maganda ba? Maganda man tignan? For example nga, napaka-stricto ng Asian Football Confederation at ng FIFA sa lighting. No? Because again, it's not only for the players, no, na nakikita nila yung bola pag madilim, pag naglalaro sa gabi, but it is also of broadcast quality. No? Meron ba tayo niyan? Ayan talagang dapat tingnan natin. And another thing, of course, ang naging mahirap for, I think, any other sport, lalo na pro sports, and I think this is also one of the reasons why even PBA, di ba, ang base nila is mostly Metro Manila based. Kasi ang geography natin is archipelago tayo, di ba? We have more than 7,000 islands. Kung dadayo kayo sa iba't ibang probinsya, no? And if you have a professional league, do you want it like PBA, which is really commercial league? Or do you want representing companies, representing mostly private corporations? O gagayahin ba natin ang for example, European style or even AFC teams, which are connected with cities or towns, di ba? For example, Bayern Munich, di ba? Or Manchester City or Manchester United or Barcelona or Real Madrid. So ayun, yung attached yung local area sa club, sa pangalan nila. Sa Pilipinas nga, I think we are trying to do that for the men's, pero napakahirap din i-promote, di ba? May mga teams na nawala na, yung sa past men's league dito sa Pilipinas, because, ayun nga, napakagastos. And aside from COVID, of course, no? Napakahirap. At strictly speaking, ang ginagawa nga ang format sa football is home and away games. But syempre, now with the COVID situation, they can have centralized tournaments or bubble competition areas. So I think having a women's professional league is a little too soon. No, lalo na yung given the pandemic situation. Siguro we can wait. But again, yung sustainability ng women's football, how popular is it, no, nationwide? 'Di ba? I mean, in terms of marketing din, tingnan natin yan. Not because like, oh, nanalo yung national team and they're qualified for the Women's World Cup. But you also have to see na, I think, almost half of the players do come from other countries, 'di ba? They are not Philippine-based. So titingnan niyo rin din. Yung parang wala na naman yung yung factor na the locals can relate to the national players because they are foreign based, 'di ba? So hindi parang automatic na, uy, I want to be like that player. Pero pala based siya sa California. So bihira ko siya makita, hindi ko siya mapapanood na naglalaro locally. No, so those are things to consider. Although na on the AFC level, meron na professional or club teams competition like the AFC Cup or the AFC ang vision kasi to be like the AFC Champions League, which is a club-based competition na sana ang mga kababaihan din ay magkaroon ng ganyan. So as of now, yung sa women's football, mostly national teams yan, not yet on the club level. And of course, if you're talking about professionalism, pro teams, mostly mga club teams yan.
Okay. Okay, ma'am. Ang next na magtatanong po sa amin si Sir Ron de los Reyes. Sir Ron.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ernest, and good morning, Cristy. Good to see you.
Yeah. Good morning. Yeah, Ron. Yeah, long time no see.
It's been a long time. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
Listening to the first part of your talk, it brought back a lot of memories because you mentioned Ugarte Field.
More than 20 years na, no?
Yeah. And then you also mentioned UP Los Baños, UP Diliman, because I was able to watch some football matches there, no? Although wala pang women's football at that time, if I'm not mistaken. I was also able to watch some football games in Barotac Nuevo, no? And it was an amazing place because people went to the roofs of their houses and also the church. Andun sila sa mga puno just to watch a football game, no? But hindi ko nga nakita yung mga ganong enthusiasm ng spectators here in Metro Manila. And at one time, I was involved with Coke Go for Gold. It's a grassroots program for
under
football.
Mr. Bernard's goal and Rene Haddad.
And Rene Haddad about Coca-Cola. It was in the early 80s, no? It was meant to develop young football players from, I'm not sure if it's 15 and under or 18 and under. But it had a very good start when it was launched at UP Los Baños. I think you were there. I don't.
Yeah, I think I was already there
also. Yes, and I don't know what happened to that program because it was supposed to be held in various regions of the country. But nung nasa San Miguel pa ako, natigil na rin yung programa na yon. But it was supposed to be a good program. Do you think we should revive a program such as that, sponsored by the private entities or even by, I don't know, the Philippine Sports Commission?
Ron, thank you very much for actually bringing that up because you're right. It was one of the more successful programs, if not the most successful football program. And grassroots talaga yon, no? Sana nga at that time kasama yung mga girls, no? Because I think that really would have been a very good program for the girls and would have created a more permanent and long-lasting impact on the development of football in the country, especially for the girls. sayang nga, no, wala na yung Coke Go for Gold. But I think it was also on the part of Coca-Cola International, no? So it was a private corporate initiative. So I guess, as you know, before and until now, Coca-Cola continues to be a FIFA sponsor. So maganda din because internationally on the world level, Coca-Cola had already its ties with FIFA, with football, and they were willing to invest on it. And siguro nagpalit lang din yung focus or priorities ng Coca-Cola International. And of course, Coca-Cola eventually separated from San Miguel Corporation, di ba? So I think a lot of it also depended on what happened on the international level, the focus of Coca-Cola Company Inc. Now on the international level. So yun na, sayang nga, naapektuhan tayo, but of course, I'm sure naapektuhan din yung mga ibang bansa with regards to the support of private sector. And in this case, it was Coca-Cola because it was a very sustainable project which developed a lot of our talented local national players. And they peaked 1980s. You know, sila Ramsey Padernilla, sila Elmer Bedia.
Yes.
You know, they all came from the Coca-Cola Coke Go for Gold program. And of course, sila yung mga nanggaling sa probinsya, no? And they were able to sustain their development until they played for the senior team. So from the youth team, dahil may programa, may suporta ng private sector, nakaabot sila sa ganun level. Of course, that time, hindi pa masyadong uso yung tinawag nga ni Edna Phil foreigners, no? Dahil wala pa naman din tayong dual citizenship law. Kung gusto mo maging Filipino, ay magpa-naturalize ka. So that was the way to go. The other thing really, we also had, and I think we still have it, I stand corrected on this, is the Kasibulan 6 to 12 program. No? So this grassroots program of the PFF was tied up with PAGCOR. I think naririnig pa minsan yung mga advertisements nila sa radyo, di ba? PAGCOR supports Philippine football, ganyan. There was a program called Kasibulan 6 to 12, and this was in the, I believe it started early 2000 and was recently terminated because again, because of priorities of government and of course of the pandemic. So ang intention nito was to support and have a grassroots development program for football under PAGCOR for 6-year-old children up to 12 years old. Pero magtataka ka din eh, di ba kung nagtagal yung programa na yon for at least 10 years, nasaan na yung mga produkto, di ba? They should have been playing for the national team already by this time. But where are they? Okay, in my analysis, my assessment, okay? Kasi ang nagkaroon ng gap eh, ang definition ng program, Kasibulan 6 to 12. So, pagkatapos ng 12 years old, magiging 13 years old na yung bata, 14, 15, 16. And this is really the crucial years when they are developing their bodies, they're becoming teenagers, they hit puberty. Ayun ang parang nalaglag na lang sila no? After, for example, being in the football program from 6 years old to 12 years old. So, anong mangyayari na yun sa yung mga produkto when they reach 13, doon nagkaroon ng gap. And I think at that time, even PFF, the Philippine Football Federation, did not have a program for them. So ang parang natural progression, of course, for that age group would be the palarong pambansa. Pero iba din yung structure at hindi sustainable, hindi regular yung training ng DepEd given that age group from 13 years old up to 17, 18. In fact, I think even DepEd does not, strictly speaking, have a training program for any sport for that matter. No, it's just all competition. Okay, palarong pambansa and local competitions. So ayun ang nangyari dyan sa football development, and I think you are right. We should revive some sort of development program. And again, I throw this back to the PSC, but of course with the support of private corporate sector. Excuse me. Because again, if you are relying on PSC and you are using public money, then medyo mahirap and then limited ang funding. So lumapit tayo sa private sector, di ba? Kagaya nga sa Coca-Cola, kaya naging very successful ang Go for Gold program. Because of course, mas madali i-manage, they can formulate their own policies, they can choose their own people, hindi na kailangan dumaan sa COA, hindi na kailangan ng congressional hearings, di ba? So yung medyo yung bureaucracy nawawala din. Pwede din mag-implement ng mga programa agad. So I think PSC really has to emphasize on the grassroots, but again, tie up with the private sector, lalo na siguro sa funding and sa support. Ang PSC naman will be also effective because it already has power as a government agency, of course, and coordination and networking with the necessary agencies like the LGUs, DOH, DepEd, and whatever other government agencies they need to coordinate with. Kaya nandyan lahat yan. No? It is again a matter of defining the lines, what sector or what body, what governing body, what corporate body is in charge of what. Yung sana, wag nang magkaroon ng sapawan ng roles. At ayun kasi nangyari, at nangyayari pa rin with the PSC slash POC-NSAs, no? Nagkakaroon ng sapawan. So even this, the situation with Obiena, which is strictly speaking an NSA affair, outside of the funds given by PSC, because that's public funding, di dapat dyan siguro makialam na ang government agencies. So, nagkakaroon ng delay, it becomes bigger and bigger. So I think we have to streamline all these things and really look at our priorities from this point.
Okay. Thank you, Cristy. Sandala, no?
Yeah, thank you, Ron. Yeah.
You're right in saying that Vietnam and Thailand they have risen in terms of football development, and they rely.
And there are other sports, so it's not just football, but really even there are other sports, and you can really see this in how they rank in each Southeast Asian game. So not only when they're hosting, but when they compete in other countries.
Mm-hmm. And they rely mostly on their locals. They don't necessarily have Vietnamese foreign athletes. Now, I was in Hanoi in 2013, and even I had a glimpse of what football is in Hanoi. I was in maybe 10th or 15th floor of my hotel room, and I saw a school. They have huge football fields. Like I counted it, 10 football fields in a campus. I don't know if that is a private school or a government school, but ang dami nilang I think that's one reason why they excel, because they attract younger players, and then they attract more people to get involved in football. They have a big bench of players. Unlike dito sa atin, kukonti lang, nabawasan na yung Ugarte Field, and then you have UP Los Baños, you have a new one, Emperador Football in
Cavite.
Yeah, and then there's one in Cavite. There's also one in Lipa, football and baseball field. No, but I think that those areas are not too accessible for people who would like to get into football, and even the schools. I think, yeah, they don't even have facilities for those, even a half football field. So, ano kaya yung pwedeng magawa ng government and the private sector so that more football fields will be built for young people? Because if you build it, sabi nga ni Kevin Costner, they will come.
Yeah, exactly. No, Ron, napakaganda yan na dapat nating tandaan. Okay? But again, I think it's a matter of really looking at our strengths and our resources. Okay? We are 7,000 islands. Diba? Di madaming beach. Diba? Everywhere we have beaches. It's not just Boracay or Palawan or Siargao. Napakadaming beaches. What can we develop in connection with football? Okay? But also with other things. Beach soccer. Okay, if you look at the Brazilians, they play a lot of beach soccer. Okay, that's one. So hindi lang natin sasabihin na, let's build a football stadium with lights, cemented seats, with nice grass or artificial grass. We should be able to think outside of the box, di ba? Ano bang nasa backyard natin? Beach. Uy, napakagandang beach. Ang lawak. Everywhere may tubig. Pwede tayo maglaro ng beach soccer. Okay, that's one. Siguro napakaganda din ng football because there are variations of football. Okay, aside from the regular game that we see regularly, the 11-a-side game, there's also beach soccer. Okay, that's one. And I think this is another thing that the PFF, and of course, okay, with PSC to help, and the local governments, LGUs, and private corporate sectors, na pwede nating i-develop, di ba? We can do that. We have so many islands. We have probably so many unexplored beaches as well. The other thing is futsal, okay? This is the 5-a-side game of football. So many people think it's an indoor game. It really isn't. It can be played outside. In fact, Ron, syempre, I'm sure you have been to Thailand also many times. And to Hong Kong, nakikita mo sa parking lot, naglalaro ang mga tao ng football, di ba? Sa parking lot. And it's really like either, di ba? I think that, I don't know if you have seen this picture. It shows the rooftop. Okay, this is in Japan. I believe it's in Tokyo. May futsal court doon sa tuktok ng building. Okay, sa high-rise building. And they're playing football or some variation of football. And this is futsal, yung 5-a-side, okay? At sa akin, napakaganda talaga ng i-promote ang futsal sa Pilipinas. Bakit? Because we already have the basketball gyms. That's one, no? And the other thing, sa tingin ko din, maraming Pilipino ayaw sa football kasi ano ba yan? Ang bagal. Ang tagal-tagal, 90 minutes, wala pa rin score. You know, they get bored. Napakainit because they're playing outside. But futsal can bridge that gap between our basketball mentality, I will call it that, or the popularity of basketball in the Philippines, and football. Bakit? Ang futsal nga, 5 players aside. So similar to basketball, di ba? Quick action, parang basketball din. Actually, parang basketball, but the players are using their feet. And of course, their head, kung may heading, no? Goalkeeper can use their hands. But similar yung action, mabilis, okay, quick, medyo higher scoring than 11-a-side football, and it can be played indoors, no? Quick action, ganon. So I think this is another thing. If we want to propagate football in the country. Promote also futsal. And of course, even the Brazilian team, and that's why also Iran is one of the most outstanding 11-a-side teams. They have qualified for the Men's World Cup so many times already. And they're at the club level, they are constantly winning trophies left and right. Dahil naglalaro din sila ng futsal. Now, I think at one time naman, going back to the quote-unquote Phil foreigners, I think na ang naging joke sa Philippine team, hindi naman yan Philippine team, Iranian team yan. Dahil at that time, halos ng players sa Philippine futsal team had Iranian roots. Whether nanay, tatay, or both parents came from Iran, but most of them really had Iranian roots, no? Ito din dapat tignan ng Philippine Football Federation. I know it's a matter of priorities really, kasi 11-a-side is always the game. And of course, that's where they're mostly channeling their resources and their funds for the 11-a-side game. But it is not to say that they should also neglect beach soccer and also futsal, because these two sports are really also feeder systems to the bigger game, to 11-a-side. Like even Ronaldinho plays beach soccer, and he's a legend in football, of course, no? And a lot of the Brazilian players play beach soccer. So these are things, again, we have to think outside of the box. We have to think, what are the possibilities out there? What can we do here? Katulad nga ng nabanggit ko before we started showing on air, sabi ko, I attended a Sports for All seminar in Japan, and they were using tinikling, and they even acknowledged it. No? Sabi nila, this is a dance from the Philippines, but they were using it as a physical fitness activity. So sa atin, sayaw lang yun, di ba? But they were using it as, we could use Chinese garters as a leg strengthening activity. You jump in and out of the bamboo poles. O pwede din taasan yung bamboo pole. You develop your leg strength so you can jump higher, di ba? And all these things. So what I'm saying is that they found other ways to use what we had. Di ba? Sa atin yun eh.
Yeah.
Pero sa atin, hanggang dun lang. Bakit? Di ba? We should use it siguro nga. Yung mga Japanese nagamit for physical fitness purposes. Ayun nga, and for leg strengthening, agility, endurance. Pero sa atin, hindi natin naisip yun. Di ba? So medyo dehado na naman tayo. Nasa atin na yun eh, pero hindi lang natin ginamit, di ba? So again, the orientation that things can be used for other purposes. Ayan ang pag-iisipan din natin.
Thank you very much, Cristy, and back to you, Ernest.
Yes, Sir Ron, thank you very much for those questions. Ang sunod pong tatanong si Gerard Arce ng Bulgar.
Good morning.
Yeah, good morning.
Hi,
Good
ma'am.
noon.
Good morning po.
Yeah, good morning.
Alam mo,
morning.
masyadong interesting yung yung mga information na nagagaling sa inyo.
Maraming
As a coach
salamat.
po kasi coach din po kasi ng babae. So nakaka-relate ako
Babae
sa mga
na football?
women's
Football,
judo. Ibang
Okay.
sports po. Opo.
Okay.
So nakaka-relate ako sa mga sinasabi niyo.
Mm-hmm.
And also yung
Buti naman.
yung grassroots development ng ating bansa, which primarily dapat talaga suyurin natin yung bawat sulok ng Pilipinas eh. Kasi ako as a coach po, kumukuha ako ng player sa probinsya and dinedevelop
dapat lang,
kahit,
di ba? Oo, dapat lang.
dinedevelop kahit college siya, i-develop mo siya kasi hindi naman kasi ganun kadali makakuha ng isang player na iuhubugi mo tapos
Oh,
isasabak
siyempre,
mo
sa lahat
kaagad
naman ng
next round.
sport, no? Hindi at
Mhm,
hindi naman instant mommy noodles dapat eh.
Oh,
Di ba?
tama,
Ang
tama.
ang sport
Tama,
talaga
ma'am.
kailangan kang magtiyaga at ayun nga yung
Mm.
development ng isang player yung matagal eh, 'di ba? Kaya
Mm.
dapat mag-umpisa pag bata pa lang.
Bata
Like me
pa
for
lang.
example, no, sa football, nag-umpisa ako maglaro sa football. I believe I was 18 years old already, no? So, actually medyo matanda na 'yon. Pero swerte lang siguro ako noon kasi volleyball player ako and athletic talaga ako. Kaya medyo naging madali sa akin para matutunan yung sport. But yung interest ko nga sa sport, nang natutunan ko yung mga ibang sport nung bata pa ako. Yung exposure ko sa sport, nung siguro mga 4 years old pa lang ako, sinasama kami ng mga magulang ko sa swimming pool pag naglalaro sila ng badminton. Tapos kasi nakatira kami noon sa Fort Bonifacio noon before it became Bonifacio Global City. Yung katapat lang namin across the street yung golf course. Kaya yung facilities nga kailangan din available sa mga bata. Tapos yung isang bahay din namin kasi lumipat kami, ang kaharap ko noon playground. Kaya ako,
Opo,
wow,
ma'am.
masaya, may facilities. No,
Oo.
ganon, may facilities. So, hindi naman na at that time iniisip ko, gusto ko maging national athlete or gusto ko magkaroon ng medalya. Wala pa akong isip na ganon noon. Yung sa akin noon, kasi bilang bata, gusto ko lang maglaro. And, ayun nga, may jungle gym, may swing, may slide, ganyan. Parang natetest ko rin yung katawan ko, kaya ko bang umakyat dyan sa slide, no? Yung mga ganon. So sana din, ang kailangan gawin ng mga government agencies at local government, di ba sinasabi nga nila, wala na nga tayong green space dito, wala na tayong open space. Sana magkaroon tayo ng playgrounds. Kung nakadalo ka na sa ibang bansa, di ba, like China, or even Hong Kong, or even Singapore, di ba? Napakaliit nung lote nila. Meron pa silang mga playground. At lalo na sa China, yung meron na silang exercise contraptions doon, di ba? Meron, for the public, walang bayad. Pupunta ka lang doon, pwede ka mag-pull-ups, mag-sit-ups, di ba? And other exercises, other calisthenics. Wala tayong ganyan sa Pilipinas na gusto pa natin, punta tayo sa gym na medyo mahal dahil may membership fees, di ba? But other countries, yeah, especially China, Japan, Korea, Taiwan, they have public parks at gumagawa na rin sila ng mga facilities for exercising that the public can use, walang bayad. Of course, ang gagaling yan sa taxes. Pero kung pupunta ka doon, anytime, pwede ka mag-exercise, diba, napakaganda noon sa kalusugan ng mga Pilipino sana. And of course, pag maganda yung kalusugan natin, it is easier to become an athlete. Diba? So, sana ayun ang mangyayari sa atin. And sana din, we should really accept the slow process ng sports development. Kasi ganyan yung katawan natin eh. Di ba? Hindi ka naman pwedeng maging magaling agad sa isang sport if you have only done it once or twice. Di ba? Hindi tayo ganun eh. Hindi ganun ang katawan natin. Di ba?
Tanong ko lang ma'am, tanong ko lang po. Kasi total na pag-usapan po yung pagdating sa women's sports. Kasi ngayon nga ma'am, medyo talaga nakita natin kung yung mga nagtatagumpay ngayon sa Pilipinas pagdating sa sports is more of sa mga babaeng side. Ito po. So, sa tingin niyo ba ma'am, hindi naman sa kasi pag sinabi mong babae, medyo advantage yan kasi ang natitrain yan lalaki, kumbaga yung physical contact, mas brusko yung lalaki. So, mas napupersa yung mga kababaihan na mas lumakas, most especially sa mga combat sports, sa mga ibang bagay po. So sa tingin niyo po ba dito sa atin sa bansa, sa Pilipinas, malaking tulong, magandang tulong kung ano po bang mga sports yung dapat nating tutukan primarily kung may kaugnayan sa mga kababaihan para mas lalo tayong maging successful pagdating sa mga international competition.
Alam mo, naniniwala ko ang mga kababaihan, in general, they can do anything, sa totoo lang. Okay? Nakita mo natin, di ba? Meron man tayong boksingero na babae, boksingera, di ba? Nanalo pa. We also have now, generally, di ba, mga doktor na babae, presidente na babae, astronaut na babae, di ba? And they have done well. So, ang ibig sabihin, walang kinalaman ang gender, yung abilidad at yung attitude towards the learning process and the development process and being at a proficient level, no? Nagtiyaga sila para maging magaling sila. Ngunit sa atin, I guess medyo may mentality pa tayo na dahil babae yan, mahina yan. Not necessarily. At maganda ngayon dahil ang pananaw nga ng hindi lang IOC or the international sports federations like FIFA for football, for example, mas nagbibigay sila ngayon ng suporta at oportunidad para sa mga kababaihan, no? So they can compete and they can participate. Ngayon, hindi ko minamaliit yung panalo ng Pilipinas sa women's football at nag-qualify sila sa women's football. But it opened the doors. Katulad ko noon, nung nag-umpisa ako sa football in the late 1970s and then early 80s, ang hirap noon talaga dahil hindi tanggap ng FIFA, yung world body, and even the Asian Football Confederation, hindi nila tanggap ang women's football. Kaya kami, naghahanap na lang kami ng paraan para makapaglaro, para i-promote yung sport. Pero yung opportunities and the support were very little. Kaya actually sa amin, napakahirap talaga. Naghirap kami dyan. At kaya nga napakasaya ko dahil yung women's team natin sa football, nakamit na yung level na yon, nag-qualify sila sa Women's World Cup. Dahil kami, naghirap kami, sila hindi. Okay? And I think this is the most important thing dahil nakapagbigay na nga ng international bodies, IOC or FIFA, more chances, more support for the women. Ayun nga, hindi ko minamaliit ang achievement ng women's team. In fact, I think they just came in at a very fortunate time kaya sila nanalo. Pumasok sila at a time na FIFA has given more funding for women's football. Sa amin, wala. Talagang mga pulubi kami, talagang beggars kami, humihingi lang kami sa mga mabubuting tao, mabubuting puso. And, we were also lucky na they supported us. So at this time, FIFA is giving more funding sa women's football. Worldwide ito, so hindi lang Pilipinas. And then the other thing, ang kasama dyan sa funding is more seminars, more education. So mas maraming seminars ngayon for women coaches, for women referees, for women match officials. So that's on the education part. Even for the medical side, FIFA is providing education for football-related medical situations. Tapos, ang nangyari din, syempre ito, mga supporting activities lang. Ang pinaka-importante is yung competition, yung tournament. So, FIFA expanded the format of the Women's World Cup to 32 teams, okay, to represent the different confederations. Noon, few years back, 24 teams lang ang qualified. Kaya napakahirap ang qualification. Kokonti lang ang pwede mag-qualify sa Asia. Ngayon din, swerte ang Pilipinas dahil Australia na kabahagi naman ng AFC, kabahagi ng Asia, is hosting. Kaya kahit hindi maganda naman ang performance nila, parang automatic slot na sila na qualified sila dahil host ang Australia. Okay, that's one. Dumami tuloy yung slots for qualifying teams sa Asia for AFC. Kaya nakapasok din ang Pilipinas. And I think this is also a crucial card there. Ay nga, medyo swerte din. Dahil ang North Korea, and North Korea is always a very strong team. Nag-champion na yan sa women's under 20 Women's World Cup and under 17, no? Twice pa nga. At they have been champion on the Asian level. Hindi sila nag-compete, hindi sila dumalo sa India for the AFC Women's Asian Cup dahil pinagbawalan sila ng gobyerno nila na hindi pa pwede maglaro for COVID reasons. So if North Korea had been there, baka hindi nag-qualify ang Pilipinas, sa totoo lang. Kasi ayan ang mga top sa Asia, no? North Korea, Japan. Japan, of course, has been World Cup champion. South Korea, Australia. Okay, so North Korea, South Korea, China, Japan, Australia. Ayan talaga ang mga top teams dito sa Asia. Siguro swerte nga lang, Australia already qualifies as the host. Wala ang North Korea, kaya yung chances ng Pilipinas naging mas malaki. And the other factor din, medyo nabawasan yung mga teams sa AFC Asian Women's Cup dahil ang India, although they are host, no, naging sila yung host ng event, they had to withdraw dahil I think more than half of their team nagkaroon ng COVID. Kaya nabawasan din yung mga participating teams at that level, no? At mas naging madali. It's never easy, pero mas naging madali na nag-qualify ang Pilipinas. Kasi even their last match, di ba, with Taiwan, with Chinese Taipei, napaka-close, di ba? They just draw sa regulation time and even in extended time, draw pa rin. Tapos, even their penalty shootout, di ba? 4-3. Napaka-close din. So, maganda naman na nag-qualify ang Pilipinas na sana maging maganda ang performance nila, no? We wish them all the best. And of course, yung coach ng Pilipinas ngayon, naging coach ng Australia. So I think he also has a lot of experience and of course, a lot of knowledge to convey to our teams. So, ayun, no, sana din sustained yung development, sustained yung performance nila.
Yun, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you,
ma'am.
Anything
else? Yeah, anything else?
Yeah, wala lang, ma'am. Kasi
sorry, no, naalala ko din, I will interject. Kasi katulad din namin, no, when I was captain of the women's team in 1985, ayun nga, parang maybe we'll say, you know, luck of the draw or naging swerte lang kami talaga. Kasi in 1985, Bangkok Southeast Asian Games.
SEA Games, bronze medal.
SEA Games. That was the very first time na nakasali ang women's football as an official event. So hindi siya demonstration event o official event. So ibig sabihin, they will award a medal. So originally dapat 5 yung countries ang lalahok, no? 5 bansa. So host Thailand, Singapore, Indonesia, Malaysia, Pilipinas. So kami, okay na kami. But actually then last minute, at that time, sinabi ni Mr. Michael Kion, who was the president of the POC then, that they would not support us officially. Pero sabi namin, kung pwede kaming pumunta doon at makilahok, we will find our own support and our own funding. Kaya swerte din kami dahil nakapaghanap naman kami ng funding and support from the private sector and we went to Thailand. Swerte din kami siguro kasi nag-back out naman ang Malaysia at Indonesia noon. Kaya 3 na lang natira. Philippines, Singapore, Thailand as host. And sabi naman namin, what do we have to lose? Yeah, okay, now we're only 3 countries. We will still win a bronze medal no matter what. So we went and we competed. Pero sa akin, ang talagang pinakamahalaga noon was that women's football was now included as an official event sa Southeast Asian Games. Kasi sabi ko naman, kung aprobado at matuloy itong women's football, lalo na sa Southeast Asian Games, baka naman ang susunod na Asian Games. At susunod doon, Olympic Games naman. So I was thinking really more about the development and the growth of the sport at that point. Kasi sabi ko nga, pinagtatawanan kami, bronze medal, tatatlo nga lang kayo . Kasi sabi ko, hindi naman namin kasalanan, di ba? And that is really the key there. And this is part of the Olympic creed, yung participation. Kasi pag hindi ka sumali, hindi ka lumahok, di ba, 100% talo ka. But if you join, di ba, you still have a chance. Baka may mangyari nga sa team, like India in the Asian Women's Cup. Nagkasakit yung mga players, they had to withdraw. So yeah, those are our breaks, and we capitalized on those breaks. And I think those incidents, those situations, nakatulong talaga din na iangat kami, no? And ayun nga, sana hindi lang tsambahan o isang pagkakataon lang, but sana matuloy-tuloy na. So hindi lang itong one time, sa Tokyo Olympics lang or sa isang Asian Women's Cup lang. Sana tuloy-tuloy na nga. Because then that would really prove our level of development, no, sustained development.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Maraming salamat po, ma'am, sa mga information, ma'am. Thank you very much, ma'am. The rest are history na. Thank you, ma'am.
Well, I just hope that we learn from history. I think ayan ang mahalaga dyan. Diba? Yeah. History should teach us lessons para hindi na maulit at maulit pa yung mga pagkakamali noon, dadalin pa natin ngayon. And I see that with Philippine sports as well. So yung pagkakamali nung time ko, hanggang ngayon nandito pa sana matuto na tayo. No? That is what history is for. Yeah.
Pasa ko muna, ma'am, sa ibang kasama natin para may question pa po, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Maraming salamat, ma'am.
Okay. Ma'am, ito yung magtatanong sa amin na sunod, yung birthday boy namin, si Ivan Saldeno.
Okay. Happy birthday.
No, actually not yet my birthday. Anyway.
Okay.
Before I move on, I remember Ma'am Weng Cardenas. She was my prof here in UPLB sa PE.
Oh, you're from UPLB.
Yeah. So
that's where I started playing football. I was in the women's varsity volleyball team. I was a Baker babe.
Yun, okay.
Baker Hall.
Yeah, Baker Hall. So So I have a question. So let's expand the horizons a bit. We're going general sports. Being a former POC chief, right now there's a new government coming in starting July 1st. So what do you want to see in Philippine sports for the next 6 years? Yan.
Okay. You talked about the POC. Okay. I have to emphasize, and please always keep this in mind. The POC and the NSCs are private sector. They are private entities. And really, it is the PSC, the Philippine Sports Commission, that's the government agency, which is right under the office of Malacanang. And the PSC really, its main function is a policy-making body. So, meaning from at that high, okay, kasi under Malacanang ang PSC, how do they envision using sports to help Filipinos, whether it's for national development, to improve health, for economic development, for education, for moral strengthening? It is really up to the PSC, and of course from the directive of the higher leadership, which is the president, to define those terms. So it's not just kasi gusto namin manalo ng gold medal sa Southeast Asian Games. So gusto namin manalo ng gold medal sa Olympic Games. well and good. That's fine, no problem. But being a government agency, palawakin nyo naman yung scope, di ba? Because we have 110 million Filipinos, and all those 110 million Filipinos should be benefiting from a sports program in the Philippines, especially if it is paid and sustained by taxpayers' money. And that's not impossible. You can have sports activities at the barangay level, you know, not for gold medal purposes, but yeah, maybe for health and fitness, for economic reasons. Gusto nyo magtipid ng gasolina, maglakad kayo o magbisikleta instead of taking your motor vehicles. Okay, that is a financial, practical reason for promoting sport. Okay, health benefits. That's by engaging in sport. That is also a very practical reason to promote sport. And the PSC should be spearheading this. Why? Especially now, I think it has been apparent, no? With COVID, it has been a health issue. Okay, health yan. Ngayon, siguro kung mas maraming mga Pilipino naglaro, gumanda yung kalusugan, siguro hindi sila tatablahan ng coronavirus na ganun-ganun lang, di ba? Malakas ang Pilipino. They can survive it. And of course, that would translate to cutting down medical costs, whether it's seeing a doctor, buying medicine, or being confined in the hospital. And, you know, heaven forbid, of course, you know, the funeral costs, di ba? So, may tie-up, no? May tie-up ng ganon. And of course, okay, on the educational part of it, kaya pwedeng relevant ang sport sa grassroots level, kahit sa mga bata, lalo na sa mga bata, okay? The moral component, okay, we're always saying that sports requires discipline, develops discipline, and of course, moral values. Mahalaga yan ngayon. Bakit? Di ba? Pag naglaro ka sa sport, you have to abide by rules. You have to follow the rules. Kung hindi, foul ka, di ba? O tatanggalin ka sa game. Walang dayaan. And that's really relevant now, especially with our elections. Okay? Are we seeing responsible, morally disciplined public officials? And of course, yeah, the coming elections will be a contentious issue because it is perceived that a lot of cheating will occur. Ngayon, nung bata yon, naglaro ng sport, was able to follow the rules, was able to discipline himself, that child will carry those values over to more adult life or in other areas of their life. And that's why I find sport so relevant in all other areas. Okay, so yeah, that's my vision, hopefully for the 6 years. More emphasis is given to sport, especially in the physical education classes by the public sector, and that they encourage the private corporate sector to support sport more by giving incentives. I know this is already under Republic Act 6847, providing tax incentives to private sector, but it needs to be pushed. Because I think over the years, ever since the PSC was founded in 1991, 1990, we have seen that government sector, PSC, has so limited funding that it cannot sustain both elite athletes development and grassroots development. So we should look at that and we should really emphasize it. And I hope the leadership also is concerned with sport. My father, President Ramos, was a very active sportsman, even as when he was president, and he showed it by example. So he would jog with people at 5, 6 in the morning. In fact, there was a program under then DOH Secretary Flavier, was named Yossi Kadiri. So they even had a mascot of a, resembling a cigarette butt. And it emphasized on the health aspects of the Filipinos. And my father would, walk and run with the public just to lend support to this program. So, tying up again sports activities with public programs, which includes all sectors, all age levels.
Right. So just a quick follow-up. So
Yeah.
after what you've seen with the current PSC and POC government, we have seen a record-breaking performance in the SEA Games 2019. Then we got our first Olympic gold last year. Would you prefer keeping Sir Butch with the PSC probably the next government, or would you want to change that?
Yeah, that's kind of a tricky question because the chairman of the PSC is a presidential appointee. So it really depends on, who's going to sit in Malacanang, right? And I don't want to preempt anything. Really, it depends on who will win the presidential elections this coming May. So I don't want to preempt that, but really going by what I said, okay, like how I want sport to be developed and promoted in the Philippines, whatever I said, does that match what Chairman Butch Ramirez has done in not only the past 6 years, because this is his second term as PSC chairman. So has he achieved what I've mentioned outside of the gold medal component? Because again, if you go by ratio and percentages, we have 110 million Filipinos. 2 people win gold medals. So how much did they spend in proportion to the to the public, the 110 million Filipinos? I know 0.00001%. So we have to look at it objectively and not just go by the emotion that, oh, we want a gold medal, right? But again, how much did they spend? And as what Ed mentioned earlier, Commissioner Fernandez actually said, one of his regrets was not being able to implement the grassroots development program because, of course, of COVID, we have that situation, but also because of the lack of funding. So, what are the priorities? Where should we put our money? To grassroots or to elite development? Is one gold medal worth it compared to the health and fitness and the fun and enjoyment and the education with the discipline and moral uprightness of, let's say, 50 million Filipinos? So I think we also have to look into that.
Thank you very much, Miss Cristy. Thank you very much, everyone.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Okay, and final questions po, ma'am, no? From Mr. Gab Ferreras from Philippine Sports Corner. Gab?
Good morning, Christina. Actually, good
Yeah,
afternoon.
good noon.
Good afternoon. Tayo,
good
kaya
yeah.
madali yan. May nagtanong dito si Dr. Meki.
Hi, Dr. Meki.
Last 2 questions pala to. Ito muna kay Dr. Meki. Are you in favor of having a special ombudsman for sports?
Again, not necessarily a special ombudsman for sports, because really, okay, if you are dealing with an ombudsman, I interpret that as public sector. Okay, it is a government agency. And really the one dealing with that would be agencies like PAGCOR, Philippine Sports Commission, and maybe the PCSO, Philippine Sweepstakes Office, and maybe PhilPost, because also stamps can contribute to the funding for sports programs. So to my mind, it's not just an ombudsman specifically for sport, because we also already have COA, okay, the Commission on Audit, to do auditing on all government offices. Now, in terms of ombudsman, I do not see why specifically we need one for sports, when I think the ombudsman's office as it is can already cover, these government agencies, the PSC involved in sports. So the PSC Philpo's Philippine Charity Sweepstakes Office, and also PAGCOR. So the caseload, I think, hasn't been that heavy in terms of graft and corruption. I mean, compared to other government offices, it's not as if it's a Pharmaly case or a PhilHealth case under the DOH. So I think with the structure of the ombudsman as it is would suffice for handling cases related to sports and the related government offices.
Okay, bago muna ako magtanong yung sa last question, ito muna tayo. Enes?
Okay, request po natin yung mga kasama po natin, Sir Ron, Gerard, at saka Ivan. Magano tayo, quick photo tayo with Ma'am Christina. Okay, and Genesee, photo po tayo. And 1, 2, 3, smile po tayo. All right. At anyway, pagpatuloy mo, Gab, yung question mo.
Yeah.
Okay, last question before we formally close this session. If considered Idilyn Diaz is looking after the leadership post of sabaang weightlifting ng Pilipinas once she retired from her weightlifting career after ng Paris, and advises to her in case na pamunuan niya weightlifting in the future someday. Maybe are you hopeful na makakakuha din ni Idilyn ng second gold or third podium finish Paris 2024 in your own perspective as a sports leader?
I think she should go for it, really. She should really try to reach the best levels that she can. And really, it's not just as an athlete, but if she does want to pursue, coaching or maybe the administrative management side of her sport or other sports, for example, like me, with the Philippine Olympic Committee, I think she should go for it. I'm sure, she's highly qualified. She's got a very competitive spirit, as never say die spirit. And, this is what's really needed out there. I think with the likes of Ron, and also Ed, nakita nyo na ako, di ba, during my time. Marami akong kalaban nun, sa totoo lang, di ba? I don't know about the younger ones. You are coming in at a generally peaceful time, as far as I'm concerned, because I was highly controversial, and I have to say that my term as the president of the POC from 1996 to 2000 was cut short because I was illegally removed by Cito Dairit and his group. So they didn't even comply with the rules and regulations as stated in the POC charter at that time. And it was really an uphill climb for me. And I really had to defend what I thought was right. And even comments like, oh, nandyan lang yan kasi anak siya ni President Ramos. And I think a lot of people wanted to discount the fact that, I was a national athlete. I founded women's football. Aside from being the daughter of the president then of the Philippines, I do have a master's degree in sport and athletic administration. So, and I have also worn a lot of different hats in sport. But people wanted to discount that and said, she's just a noisy person, kasi babae yan, ganyan. In fact, if you're still familiar with Goteng Kok, he was one of my main detractors. He was head of Patafa then. Publicly, he even put it out in the newspapers, Cristy should resign and just take care of her kids. Okay? So I would have comments like that. And it was always, belittling and making, small light of what I had done, because really my emphasis at that time when I was the president of the Philippine Olympic Committee was to emphasize on the autonomy and independence of the POC plus the NSAs vis-a-vis public sector, meaning the PSC, and that the POC and the NSAs should be allowed more leeway to conduct their affairs without having to rely so much on the PSC. And yeah, they were belittling that effort of mine by saying again, you know, it was ad hominem. She's just a noisy woman or noisy girl because she's a spoiled brat daughter of the president. So that's how I was being portrayed. But in retrospect, really, I hope the likes of Heidelin and other women out there do pursue their careers in sport, yeah, whether again as athlete, coach, management, administration, medical, media, because it is a very challenging field. It is enormously rewarding as well. And if they feel that that is their calling, then go for it. Huwag niyong intindihin na at isipin yung dahil babae ako or I'm supposed to be the weaker sex. Wala nang ganon ngayon, di ba? Huwag na natin isipin yung ganon. And yeah, I will be here to support them, give them advice. Thank you very much. In fact, na-imbita ako ngayon dahil nga with a lot of you, the older ones, it has been more than 20 years since I really got in touch with everyone. So it's actually nice reconnecting with the older ones, and of course, you know, with the younger ones, it's really nice to know you, and I'm able to convey, you know, my experiences and my thoughts on several issues. So thank you very much.
And with that, medyo overtime tayo ng 30 minutes. So Ernest, back to you. Maraming salamat at magpa-part 2 tayo next time.
Ayun, abangan natin yung part 2, madam, no? Marami pa tayong pag-uusapan.
Maraming salamat.
I will seek a consultation from you with what we talked about soon, no?
Yeah.
But anyway,
Okay
sir.
Maraming salamat.
Okay, Sir Ed, for kayo na po.
Okay, thank you, Ernest. And again, as usual, it's very entertaining and very informative episode with Ma'am Cristy Ramos dito sa ating Sports on Air Weekly. Ma'am Cristy, your message po sa mga atleta natin, especially sa mga female athletes na talagang sumisikat ngayon sa iba't ibang sports, and pati na rin message nyo sa mga POC and officials natin na nakikinig ngayon sa inyong pag-guest dito sa Sports on Air.
Gusto ko lang magpasalamat sa iyo, Ed, no, for getting in touch, for inviting me to be on Sports on Air. Napakagandang experience to sa akin kasi matagal na rin ako hindi nakapag-usap sa media. Mainly because I have been involved in international football. So I was more involved in FIFA, and I'm still involved in the Asian Football Confederation. Kaya medyo hindi ko din nakakausap masyado yung sports media. At syempre, nagbabago naman ang panahon. Medyo out of the scene muna tayo. May mga ibang pumapalit. At dapat sila talagang ma-interview nyo at malaman naman kung anong mga isip-isipan nila at gusto nilang gawin dito sa sports sa Pilipinas. I hope for those in Philippine sports that really, you know, we think about the whole country. Ayun nga, hindi lang dahil nga uso o medyo flashy yung pangalan na katulad ng Ascals o Maldita, dahil dapat magandang imahe naman ng Pilipinas ang ibigay natin. And for me, being a proud Filipino and staying here in the Philippines, I really feel that the highest respect should be given to the Philippines, lalo na pag may bandera tayo sa dibdib natin o yung sulat na Pilipinas nasa likod natin, no? We have to show the best of what we are as a people, na hindi lang gusto natin manalo ng medalya, dapat hindi lang naman ganon. For the other athletes, no, go and continue developing and training and being patient. sa totoo lang sa akin, pag naririnig ko yung fight Pilipinas, medyo masakit sa tainga yun eh. Kasi di ba pag sinasabi mo ng fight, struggling pa yon, hindi ka pa nananalo nun, lumalaban ka pa nun. But if you say win Pilipinas, di ba? Panalo Pilipinas. Mas clear ang objective, mas clear ang mensahe. Kaya sana dapat ayun ang ating cheer, no? Wag na yung fight Pilipinas. Mahirap ang fight, mahirap ang laban, nakakapagod. Pero kung sabihin mo, panalo Pilipinas, di ba? Mas sure 'yon, mas magandang mensahe. For our sports athlete, for our sports officials, I hope that the politics and the bureaucracy will be lessened because essentially ang naapektuhan talaga yung mga atleta natin. At lalo na sa mga naging atleta din at ngayon sports officials na I'm sure alam nyo yung pinapagdaanan ng mga atleta natin. Suportahan natin sila pero sana yung mga atleta din be responsible and you are also held accountable for the public support and the public resources that are given to you. And of course you are always a role model figure and someone that especially the youth look up to. Kaya dapat maganda ang ating behavior, maganda ang ating imahe dahil marami sa atin binabantayan kayo, pinag-uusapan kayo, pinanonood kayo. So I hope maganda din ang ipakita nyo dahil Pilipinas at bandera ng Pilipinas ang dala ninyo. So, hopefully, until next time, I will see you again. Maraming salamat sa lahat.
Thank you again, Ma'am Cristy. We hope meron
Maraming salamat.
part 2 no, madami pa kaming gustong itanong sa iyo but we're short on time and we hope we can invite you again.
Yeah, thank you,
Yes,
Ed,
back to you.
and everyone on Sports on Air.
Okay, thank you very much. And again, para sa mga nanonood sa atin ngayon, please do like us on Facebook para malaman natin kung sino yung mga kasunod nating mga panauhin. And if you're in YouTube, mag-subscribe po tayo. And again, ito po ang grupo ng Sports on Air Weekly na nag-overtime ngayong Sabado, nagsasabi ng simpleng mensahe sa panahon ngayon, which is to stay safe and God bless.